Welcome to Misspoke, the second episode of my podcast to do with all things cycling and cycling culture and other bits of stuff, but primarily cycling. We're during the lockdown. I'm in my garage, and there's advantages to being in the garage. I'm on my own, so I don't tend to get interrupted. But it's one of those normal garage doors, and although there isn't much traffic, there are cars going past. So if you can hear cars going past in the background, well, that's what they are. They're cars going past in the background. So this episode of Misspoke is going to have a few little bits and pieces. First of all, a word from my sponsor, and actually I haven't got a sponsor. But what I thought I'd do is give a shout out to a company called Marmot Tours, who do cycling tours all over Europe. Difficult time for Marmot Tours at the moment, as with a lot of other companies. But we will come out of this lockdown at some stage, and so will Europe. So if you're interested in going on a really great cycling tour, I've done 4 or 5, not quite sure. I think 4, but I had a 5th and a 6th booked, which I've had to cancel, unfortunately. They go very quick. Refunds, by the way, far quicker than Ryanair have given, but that's another point. So marmottours.co.uk, cycling tours all over Europe. Give them a whirl, because they're a nice company and they do good tours. Anyway, I'm going to start off today with a monologue, and a lot of the content of this podcast is available in written form. And some of it is available in a book called Cycling Shorts and Cycling Clips, which you can get from Amazon. So there you are, a bit more money in my coffers. And this particular monologue is called The Data Junkie. Hope you enjoy it. So anyway, my resting heart rate is 64, which has gone down since I started cycling. Indurain's was 32 and Bjorn Borg was 27. Of course, he wasn't a cyclist. I did an FTP test and that showed 242, apparently. Froome did about 460 on that climb last year. They said Hoy could do like 1800 for about 10 seconds, and Wiggo was over 500 for the hour record, and Sagan put out some massive number on that final climb when he won the Worlds. It's a secret, though. Armstrong's was higher, but he was cheating, of course, but still. But those numbers are meaningless, really. What you need is watts per kilogram, which is how many watts per kilo of body weight. Now, I weigh 13 stone, which is about 80 kilos or something. I think you divide the 13 by 2.2. No, that's not right. You multiply. Anyway, I think my watts per kilogram is about 3, or is it 2.5? Whereas Froome's is 5. So he's like 2/5 better than me, but you can't judge it like that anyway. It's meaningless, because the key thing now is Vo2 Max, which is how you process oxygen, breathing. Mine is 62. I did this test. Greg LeMond's was like 84, but that was before he got shot up. But that's meaningless, really. They say cadence is the thing. Contador, remember him? He can do like 120 for an hour going uphill. Of course, he stands up. I couldn't do that. It's all on the Garmin. And then I put it on Training Peaks and Golden Showers. It's all analysed. No, I'm not on Strava. I don't want everyone to see my numbers. I'm hoping to get a power meter, apparently. All the pros use them. It really helps with training. I don't know what it's for. What's your FTP then? Have you done a test? You can do it over 20 minutes or an hour. If you do it over 20 minutes, you multiply it by 0.95, or is it 2.2? Now I'm confused. No, I don't know why. I read it somewhere. Anyway, that tells you the number I'm doing. Trainer Road now, it's got all my data on. Now, I don't have time to go out for a ride now. I have to analyse all these bloody numbers. What does your bike weigh? Mine is like 7 kilos, which is about 16 pounds in real money. But that's without me on it, obviously, which adds a bit. I'm hoping to get a new bike, maybe a Trek Mondo. I need to lose some weight. That would help my VO2. What did you say your FTP was? Sportives. Do you like sportives? I feel they're a bit like toll roads for cyclists. Because, before the coming of Starbucks, coffee was sold in cafes or greasy spoons or in tea shops, where it was tolerated but not encouraged. Starbucks' its greatest trick was to get people to believe that paying £3 for a cup of coffee with a silly name in a coffee shop was better than paying £1 in a cafe. Now, cafes are dying. Actually, Starbucks are dying, but that's coronavirus. That's a different thing. But coffee shops are everywhere, and the coffee is invariably sold with a panini. That's a toasted sandwich, by the way. It costs about $5.95. and an Italian-style biscotti, I think they're called, which are about $2.95 or something. And the specials are written on a blackboard, and there's a poster, it's usually of Marco Pantani on the wall, something Italian anyway, preferably dead. Anyway, back in the day, this was before Di2, before carbon wheels, pre-Rafa, pre-bike fits. The cyclist who fancied a long ride on a Sunday got on their bike, met their mates, and went for a ride. They rode on ordinary roads, they carried bananas or jam sandwiches for when they got hungry, and they stopped at a cafe for a bacon roll, a slice of fruitcake and a cup of tea. They would pass other cyclists along the way and exchange a cheery hello with Nobby or Binky or Lionel or Moocher, and then they'd get home in the afternoon just in time to watch the big match while the wife cooked a meal, or a roast preferably. The more OCD ones recorded the distance in a grubby notebook kept for such a purpose, and in the evening they hung their damp woolen shorts in front of the open fire to dry while they read the Daily Mail and smoked a woodbine. Those were the days. But then someone invented the sportive, and like Starbucks, the whole world changed. No longer could you just go for a ride. First, you had to register, and if it was too popular, you couldn't get in and went into a ballot instead. And now you had to pay 25 quid, 35 quid, 50 quid, even 75 quid for Christ's sake, just to ride on the Queen's Highway across a land your grandfather fought for. Toll roads for cyclists, I call them. And then on the appointed day, you turned up with the other suckers and got a timing chip, like you didn't already have a cycling computer or watch. And you followed a route, maybe even the same route you'd ridden for free a few weeks ago, and occasionally a bored-looking marshal in a yellow tabard would point the way. And every 25 miles there'd be a feed stop, some trestle tables laden with bananas, cheapest of cheap cakes, and a tap to fill your bottle if you were lucky. And if you were lucky, there was a portable toilet, like what builders never use, where 200 people queued up to pee in a glorified bucket. There were no more cheery hellos at other cyclists. This was unofficially, of course, a race, and other riders had to be ignored or, ideally, abused. Those who had chosen the shorter route had to be mocked and sneered at. And if they rode a mountain bike or, heaven forfend, a hybrid, were to be ignored completely. At the end of the ride, you passed under a flimsy banner which announced the finish line, and then you went home and watched some cycling on Eurosport while the wife made you a panini with mozzarella and rocket and sun-dried tomatoes and some other vegan shit. The more OCD ones then loaded their ride onto Strava and waited for the kudos to flood in. And now there's a sportive calendar, and every charity raises money with one, and they've cool names like Dragon Ride or Kentish Killer or Hell of the Ashdown. And each one has a special jersey and a logoed bottle, maybe even a goodie bag. And each year the price gets higher and the bananas get browner and the flapjacks get staler and more exotic. And, you know, I miss cycling just for fun, and the cafe and the bacon roll and Nobby and Binky and Lionel and Moocher and the big match, my woodbine, Daily Mail, my damp woolen shorts and the wife. They're funny things, aren't they, sportives? I mean, I like sportives, and I've done quite a lot of them. But I do think that 75 quid or whatever it is for the Prudential Ride London, okay, that's closed road, so it's slightly different, but, you know, 30 or 40 quid or something for to ride on the Queen's Highway, as they say. I mean, it's a bit of a rip-off, and the food stations, anyway, that's, you know, that's my take on it. But you know, people say it's for charity, yeah. Well, I won't. You know, maybe I'll save my charity sportive thoughts for another podcast before I risk misspeaking on this particular misspoke. And now here's a tip. This little interlude is Julian's cycle tips in the workshop. Now, if you're wrapping your handlebars with new bar tape, when you finish, you're going to put some electrical tape on to sort of tie it all together. Well, before you start, cut off a couple of foot-long lengths of electrical tape and stick them on your bike frame, so that when you finish your bar taping, your electrical tape there is ready, and you can just pick it up and you can put it on the end of the bar tape and stick it down. Little tip there for you, and hope you enjoy it. Now I'm going to end this episode of Misspoke with a short story. And this short story is called The Old Man and the Seat, and it's with profuse apologies to Ernest Hemingway. Nick took his bike down from the rack and wheeled it out of the shed. He had many bikes, but this was his favourite. It was a look, a good bicycle, one of the best. He loved the clean lines, the pale blue colour, the shiny components. Nick was old and tired, his hair growing thin, his skin dark and tanned, no excess fat, slim muscled legs, strong calves. He poured a daiquiri from the jug and the salty spirit moistened his lips. He removed a fat Cuban cigar from his top pocket, bit the end off and stuck it in his mouth, rolling it around with his tongue before dipping it in the oily flame from his Zippo. The bicycle was his friend. He remembered the good times, the best of times. Those were good times when they rode to Les Invalides and drank good coffee by the Seine, and when it was dark they rode home again. They didn't have lights, but they weren't afraid. They were never afraid, except for Scott, who was always afraid and kept getting his shoes caught in the pedals and falling over. And then that time they rode to Spain to see the bulls, and Scott had a puncture and they left him on his own to fix it, and he was so mad and never forgave them. Nick cleaned his bicycle carefully, using a toothbrush on the cassette and an old rag to polish the metal. He loved how it shone in the weak sunlight. Now it was true and honest and clean, and it was good. Nick sat down on his garden chair. It was worn and brown and cracked. He wished he had kept it in better condition, like his bicycle. His bicycle was true and honest, like a man, a good man, but his garden seat was a woman, soft and uncertain and changeable. Nick grew wistful as he gazed at the cloudless sky and thought of seats. Seats and chairs, sofas, chaises longues, so many seats, so little time, like women. Nick looked at his bicycle, and then he looked at his garden seat. He looked at the saddle. It was a brown Brooks saddle, worn and faded, but the shape fit him perfectly. He could lose the bicycle, but not the saddle. He would keep the saddle, and they would grow old together and keep each other warm. He stroked the hard leather, his fingers catching on the shiny rivets. Bicycles could be changed and replaced. They didn't last, but a good saddle was a seat forever. His wife joined him in the garden with a cup of tea. "Look, Pilar," said Nick, stroking the saddle. "Is she not fine?" "Yes, she is fine," said Pilar. "She is very fine, but I prefer physic." And now a final word from my final sponsor. And my final sponsor, funnily enough, is me. And I have a YouTube channel. It's called Julian Hutchings, surprise, surprise. And there's various videos on there. There's quite a lot of videos about cycling, but I do other stuff as well. So hope you go on my YouTube channel. Hope you subscribe. Hope you enjoy the videos. And I hope you enjoy this little attempt at a second podcast, episode 2 of Misspoke. Available on all good podcast platforms. And see you next time for episode 3. Keep on listening, keep on cycling, but stay safe, stay inside, don't go too far from home, protect the NHS and save lives. Thanks for listening.